So this video is pretty simple. It's old versus new. Stealth from last year up against the new Stealth 2. Head-to-head battle. Which one's going to come out on top? So just before we hit some shots, let's look at the differences of the looks between these two drivers. I think from the bottom of the club, obviously we see that track now just become a little bit more what looks to be a bigger weight, and it is actually a bigger weight at 15 grams in comparison to 10 grams we saw in last year's version. And I think, to be honest, obviously there's more carbon now involved in the sole of the golf club, but you know, it just looks a little bit more premium, I would say, in the new Stealth 2. Flipping that over and looking them into that playing position, and again, some big differences for me, the looks. The colour change is obviously altered now, hasn't it? We've gone from matte in the carbon. Last year, we're now gone black gloss and a carbon frame, and I think that just makes it look a lot more classier. I think it sits a little bit better. The top edge looks to be a little bit straighter, which I quite like. So I think cosmetically a good change there. But shape-wise of the head, very, very similar to last year's version. Okay, so we're going to start things off with the last year's Stealth. Again, it's the plus head, 9 degree, got the same shaft. Let's hit some shots with it, get some base numbers, and then we'll see how the new one stacks up against it. So just before we start hitting, post your comments down below. Is the new one going to win, or is the old one going to win? Let us know down below. And I think maybe what we saw with the last year's model, and definitely what TaylorMade have come out and said with the new one, was last year's wasn't the most forgiving driver that they've made. Yes, obviously they introduced that carbon face, looking at sort of ball speed, but then looking at MOI, they've increased that quite considerably in the newer version. So that'll be an interesting one to sort of see. Definitely found that in my findings through fittings with golfers, that the miss hits were a little bit more, bigger drop-offs. Okay. Decent strike, just moving slightly that right hand side, but the connection was good. Yeah, I see that ball speed there, 160, not the quickest there, good club head speed. Oh, that's a good shot, that's a good strike. Good ball flight, as we see with this plus, it gives us that real sort of forward ball flight. That's a really good ball speed there, just short of 165, better golf shot from me. Yeah, and again, good ball flight. Okay, interesting there. So the last two were really good sort of strikes, so that ball speed's better, 166. It spins a little bit higher there, so that's not really getting my return that I'd probably like to sort of see maybe from that typical ball speed. Get that spin down a little bit more, should we squeeze some extra carry out of that. Okay, so there's 10 shots hit with last year's Stealth. Just a little bit of a right bias shape there, but to be honest, all those felt pretty decent strikes, so quite happy with the way I've struck that to then pitch up that Stealth 2 against it, and that's exactly what we're going to do now. Right, so shaft now switched over into the Stealth 2 head. It's a plus, so movable weight with that weight set in the middle, so very neutral, 9 degrees set at 9 degrees, so exactly the same setup as what we've just done in that previous one. Now, with the weight saving, with the extra carbon on the sole of the club in relation to last year's model, there seemed to be a bigger, noticeable bigger weight in the back, and it's 15 gram weight. We saw that tiny screw in last year's. This looks to be a little bit more, considerable bit more weight, so maybe a little bit more forgiveness there, and that's the big talking point with the Stealth 2, is that MOI has massively increased, and that's exactly what TaylorMade is saying, and it's interesting to sort of see if that's going to be the case. But as I say, look-wise, down by that golf ball, I think, you know, with a gloss top and the matte surround now, gives it a bit more of a classier look, I would say. A nice one to kick things off. A little bit of a higher ball flight on that particular shot. Again, just that little bit of that left to right shape in there, which I don't mind. Not bad ball speed. Good bit of club head speed. Spin a little bit on that higher side there. Could get that spin control. Again, good ball flight, good strike. It definitely feels a little bit more solid. I think the sound of that is quite similar. Still getting that carbon sound coming through there, but maybe just a tiny bit more muted maybe than previous model. Not a lot, but maybe just a little bit more muted, a bit more solid. Okay, that was a little bit out of the toe, but I'll tell you what, that's flowing really well. Good ball flight. Look at that ball speed. A little bit of club head speed with that as well, actually. Didn't feel that. So the thing that's going to change a little bit here is actually the club face compared to last year's version. So TaylorMade is saying there's 2 grams saving of weight in the face. Doesn't sound a lot, but that weight saving is actually around the perimeter of the face. So it's a little bit lighter around the club face. So on those miss hits, that helps to get that energy transfer, that sort of spring effect in a way. Oh, Oh, there's that one up that left hand. That's a great strike. Just held on to that one a little bit more. And ball speed's good. Just increased my dispersion a little bit with that shot. And that again is a very good strike. Looks to be a little bit of a higher ball flight if I'm going to tell you the truth between that and the previous one. Spin is definitely a little bit higher with this. Solid. Very, very solid feel to that, very stable sort of feel to it. Maybe that little bit of weight, that higher MOI gives me that little bit of that sort of stability. It's just that spin is a little bit high. That felt like a really good strike there. I'm definitely sort of shaping the ball a little bit more straight to slightly left to right today, which can obviously increase a little bit of that spin. Okay, so there's 10 shots hit with the Stealth 2. Nice bit of ball speed on that last particular shot, getting over that 302 mark. Okay, let's go and check out a few numbers between the two models. Okay, so a little bit of a different pattern for me today. We're starting to work a little bit more on that left to right sort of shape, which I quite like for me personally in my game. Maybe you sort of see dispersion-wise quite similar, but we just lost a couple more right with the last year's model compared to this year. Nice little tight one there, nice little long sort of shot there, and then obviously 2 or 3 misses up that left-hand side, which I got sort of similar with last year's version as well. Okay, and then maybe looking at the numbers there, so you see club head speed just a tiny bit quicker with the new one, just averaging out of those 10 shots 1 mile an hour quicker. Getting a little bit more ball speed, 165.7. Obviously, that little bit of extra club head speed is probably just going to give me a little bit, obviously, a little bit more ball speed, but a bit tight on the highest to lowest of the ball speed in comparison to last year's model. A few drop-offs there. Launch very, very similar as you're going to expect, averaging around that 11. And spin was actually a little bit higher, which sort of surprised me a little bit. Obviously, a little bit of that shape of that shot. But again, from the highest to the lowest is a tighter sort of tolerance of the spin, where this is the always thing that worried me a little bit with last year's. We've got some various spin numbers, and I saw that with a lot of different types of golfers as well. You see, I've got like a 1400 there up to like just nearly 3200. There's a big difference there, isn't there, between that drop off and that high one, and obviously that is a little bit worrying as depending on your strike pattern on the club face. So distance wise, you can see, you know, obviously just creeping a little bit more out of that. I think if I can control that spin, I'm going to get a little bit more out of that again with that ball speed there. But I think, to be honest, you know, obviously both decent sort of drivers. I think the new one is definitely a little bit more improved as that forgiveness, the tighter on the numbers there from my findings. So old versus new, which one are you going to go for? Post comments down below, and hopefully we'll catch up with you all very soon.